Coming up on the top 5 indie games of September, we take a look at an ultra-violent beat-em-up, a tribute to F-Zero and other futuristic races, and a Twin Peaks-inspired mystery. But just before we do, let's get into some headlines and honourable mentions.
The PS Vita and Wii U ports of Hyper Light Drifter have been cancelled. In a video posted to YouTube, lead designer Alex Preston cited health issues and problems with the game engine running on the platforms as the main reasons. Refunds have been offered to all affected backers. Hyper Light Drifter released earlier this year on Windows, Mac, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Towerfall developer Matt Thorson has released an 8-player version of the local party game exclusive to itch.io. The new version is a standalone title and has been modified to cater for 5 to 8 player matches.
Retro-looking platformer Owlboy has received a November 2nd release date. First conceived in 2007, Owlboy will be available on PC.
11-Bit Studios, the creators of 2014's This War of Mine, has announced their next game, Frostpunk. Due out next year, Frostpunk looks to also be a sophisticated game.
The narrative-driven Firewatch will be made into a full-length feature film. The adaptation comes as a result of developer Campo Santo's new partnership with film studio Good Universe. Currently, there are no specifics regarding the film's production.
Failbetter Games has revealed Sunless Skies, a sequel to the excellent Sunless Sea. The game will launch a Kickstarter in February and be available on Windows, Mac and Linux. Taking place up in the stars, Sunless Sky will be set in the same Victorian world as Sunless Sea.
Finally, Darkest Dungeon has just released on the PlayStation 4 and PS Vita. The complete game released on PC back in January.
Diagnosis is an ancient surgeon simulator made for Ludum Dare 36. With your patients at death's door, you must use leeches, urine and opium and other bizarre items to conjure a remedy. It's not completely finished and fairly short, but the game has terrific black humour and room to be expanded upon.
Event Zero is a narrative-driven exploration game that's kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey meets Portal. Alone on a ship, you must communicate and build a relationship with the insecure AI entity Kaizen, who can procedurally generate up to 2 million lines of dialogue in response to what you say. Again, it's a bit short, but the story and atmosphere are enthralling.
If the wait for Cuphead is too much, Grampy Cats may be able to fill your appetite for old-timey cartoon-styled gaming. Another Ludum Dare 36 entry, Grampy Cats tasks you with cleaning Gramps' place before his date arrives. Adorable and jazzy.
Project High Rise is a management sim in which you build skyscrapers. It doesn't provide as much depth and challenge as other titles in the genre, but constructing your own tower and making it profitable is still a fun experience.
Seasons After Fall is a 2D puzzle platformer with art so brilliant it rivals that of Ori and the Blind Forest. Its symphonic soundtrack is just as pleasing and makes for a terrific world to explore. However, gameplay can feel repetitive after a while. Will come to consoles next year.
Unbox is a physics-based platformer in which you guide a little box through crazy high-flying adventures. There are a ton of collectibles to gather and then customize your box with, as well as local multiplayer. With its tropical open world and light-heartedness, the game does well to capture that laid-back spirit of a late 90s gaming.
Mother Russia Bleeds is an ode to the arcade beat-em-ups of the late 80s and early 90s, mixed with the nasty brutality of Hotline Miami. Its ridiculous story, a hallmark of the genre, sees 4 street fighters given an experimental drug by the Soviet mafia, become insane and addicted, and then go on a violent escapade to exact their revenge. Fans of Streets of Rage and Final Fight will find a game that lives up to the standard of those classics, albeit with a few flaws, including the bewildering absence of enemy health bars. Mother Russia Bleeds uses an experimental drug from its story as a power-up to spice up gameplay, but the game's biggest impact on the genre is its self-awareness. It's a game that is not just violent, but sickening and visceral. Gamers have almost been acclimatized to seas of blood and corpses, but beating pigs to death, even in pixel form, is truly shocking. We don't feel that Mother Russia Bleeds is making some political statement. Rather, it feels like it peels back any withstanding illusions and acknowledges upfront that it's a game about beating hordes to a bloody pulp. It quite literally injects the genre with its own drug of hyper-violence as a statement that it's a simulation to satisfy any repressed yearnings for violence. If that's the kind of game you want to play, Mother Russia Bleeds has got you covered.
After a successful Kickstarter and a few months in early access, Halcyon's 6 star-based Commander has graduated to full release. The game can be best described as an amalgamation of past titles. There's the base building of the more recent XCOM series, a turn-based combat system that mirrors the early Final Fantasies, and the spacecraft and crew management of Faster Than Light. Rather than feel hodgepodge, Halcyon 6 manages to blend all these elements into one cohesive whole. You send fleets out to explore, fight, complete missions, and ultimately collect resources. When they return, you use the resources to upgrade your base and ships, which then allows you to control more territory and see off greater threats. The cycle then repeats. The only problem with such sequential gameplay is that it takes just one rotten component to spoil the game. For Halcyon 6, that rotten component is the never-ceasing chore of gathering resources. It quickly becomes tedious and burdensome and takes you away from the other truly fun parts of the game. It's not a deal breaker, but it makes the game a real grinded out RPG. The other key feature we haven't mentioned yet is Halcyon 6's Star Trek-like diplomacy. Instead of fighting with all the alien races you bump into, you can instead sit down for a productive chat. Here, the witty humour of the game really comes to the fore. These interactions are a real highlight, and we'd have loved to see them developed further. In terms of duration, the game takes a while to complete, and can get seriously challenging at points. Although not without its failings, Halcyon 6 makes for a terrific strategy-oriented space adventure.
With its incredible speeds and unforgiving difficulty, the futuristic subgenre captivated audiences of the 90s. It produced household names like F-Zero, Wipeout and Roll Cage, but for the last 20 years the futuristic racer has laid dormant. As seems to be the case with everything 90s at the moment, it has seen a mini resurgence of late. Neo-Fast Racing came to the Wii U last year, and Distance and Grip are promising early access projects. Redout, released this month, is arguably the most polished futuristic racer of the last decade. A Redout is when negative G-force makes blood flow to the head, causing red vision. Redout the game isn't that dangerous, but its speed is absolutely blinding, reaching speeds of 900 km an hour. It also ticks a lot of the other boxes you'd expect from the subgenre: crisp visuals, gorgeous backdrops, a variety of power-ups, and being bloody difficult. Forget about mastering the game, Redout takes hours just to get competent. There aren't any weapons, but durability is a big part of the game. Hitting into walls and other hovercrafts will chip away at your health and potentially blow up your car, forcing a restart and the loss of precious seconds. This need for survivability balances the need for speed well, adding nuance to the game. The 7 race types are designed to focus on one of the 2 elements more than the other. For instance, Instagib has increased wall damage and no respawns. This affects vehicle choice, but more importantly gets you thinking about how you race. We'd say Redout's most impressive feature is its handling. From the first race you can tell it's superbly responsive. Even if your times are too slow, it makes the act of strafing through the tracks joyful. The game also has online multiplayer and can fit up to 12 players in one race. The futuristic racer is a niche genre, but Redout ensures it won't be forgotten.
Virginia is the latest IT game in the increasingly emergent genre of walking simulators. From Gone Home to Firewatch, it's a genre that has produced some gems, but has become more renowned for its blurring of the divide between game and film. For some, the lack of agency it affords the player makes the game no longer a game. If that last sentence resonates with you, then you'll probably hate Virginia. Even in comparison to its peers, it's extremely controlling. The narrative is linear with no choices. You can only push the story along and watch the action unfold. Whilst this will turn a lot of players off, it is also where Virginia's magic lies. Being taken out of the action lets you see more. This is reinforced by the equally bold choice to have zero dialogue. It forces you to pay more attention to visual cues. You're encouraged to ponder symbols and their significance, and with less distractions, body language is allowed to communicate powerfully. Again, this kind of design can be seen in the decision to have a very minimalist art style and set the default frame rate to 30 FPS. Virginia strips back video game conventions and interactivity, not just to give its story more prominence, but so that it can be received more attentively. It encourages active viewing, and it's here that we can understand how it differs from film. Understandably, this will still frustrate a large number of players. But for those willing to try it, Virginia offers a different and potentially illuminating way to tell story in games.
In 1993, a game called Myst was released for Macintosh computers on CD-ROM. From there, it would become the greatest selling PC game of all time. The Sims would eclipse that record in 2002, but by then Myst had already pioneered both the point-and-click adventure and the popular adoption of CD-ROMs. 23 years later, original creators Cyan Inc. are continuing Myst's legacy with the release of Obduction. The game begins on an island that could very well be the same one from Myst. However, it quickly teleports to a rocky desert where a purple city hangs in the background. Rather than be one logical creation, Obduction turns out to be four seemingly disparate worlds strung together. Immediately, this establishes the game's mystery and arouses curiosity. Although effective, this use of genre subversion is not really a theme of Obduction. The trickery at the start is really just a reminder that Obduction is not a remake, but a whole new adventure. Obduction is overall quite faithful to Myst. Like its inspiration, Obduction is populated by extraordinary scenery. Thanks to technological advancements, these landscapes can now be viewed as one continuous world rather than a series of connected photographs. To say the least, it's stunning just to walk through. Throughout these places, there is a scattering of innocuous and odd items. In true Myst fashion, these will help you solve some seemingly unconnected puzzle later on. Puzzles are often straightforward, so if there's a locked door, the solution is to use a key. The real challenge is drawing upon everything previously seen to locate the solution. As such, the nature of these puzzles encourages the player to explore the world and examine its every detail. It is also often in these details that bits of the story spill out from, making for an organic storytelling experience. The satisfying formula is the same one found in Myst. Obduction just wraps it into a new adventure and makes it playable for today. That it still holds up is a testament to Cyan Inc. and the kind of experience they try to create for the player. Obduction starts off as a mess of incongruent planets mashed together, but as you traverse it, pick up all the puzzle pieces and put them in the right places, it becomes this richly fantastic world. Currently, Obduction is only available on Windows, but a Mac port is coming soon.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time here on Indieformer.